Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtics fans YouTube channel. And this morning in the One Celtic fans news, the Celtic news this morning is it's back to work. It's back to basics this morning. It is back to basics. It's back to what we get paid for, as they say, back to the weekend, back to Hibs away. But Alistair Johnson, there's one news story that caught my eye. Alistair Johnson names a teammate that he reckons is a £50 million player. He said the midfielder obviously got man of the match. The midfield player in question got man of the match during the week against Atletico Madrid. And now that we've got over the hangover of that epic game, the 2-2 draw against Atletico Madrid, it said we don't take anything away from that, but we get back to normal. And when you think about it, MK Dons, just a few years ago, to then coming to Celtic, to then getting a call up to Denmark national squad, Man O'Reilly getting man of the match, having a great season so far with 6 goals and 4 assists. 6 goals and 4 assists from the player already. And you've got to say, is he worth 50 million? Is he worth 50 million? And Tam Mack's in the house, Treble Rebels in the house, and Sean is in the house so far. Do you think Matt O'Reilly is really worth that amount of money? He probably was. He would be if he was down in England playing. But would Celtic ever get 50 million for him? There's a level of expectation when it comes to Matt O'Reilly, and the fact that Celtic did turn down 10 million for him. They obviously see a lot of things in him, and we're starting to see that. We're starting to see that fantastically come to fruition. As far as Celtic's concerned, he was a player that could have went away at the start of the season. Could have went away at the start of the season. Could have went away down to Leeds. I think that would have been the wrong decision for him. I think going down to Leeds would have just ruined his career, like it has many players. But there is a player that says, Alistair Johnson says he's a £50 million player all day long. He reckons he has that value to Celtic. When you look at it, Brendan Rodgers has now said that, look, we're not miles away from progression in the Champions League. He says we're getting there as a team. He says we're getting there. We aren't miles away. Celtic fans obviously left Celtic Park the other evening with mixed emotions. It was a good result when you look at the bigger picture. It was a good result. I guess one of the best teams in Europe and one of the best teams in Spain also. When you look at it, the link and play that we had the first half, we were absolutely on fire. The speed of the play, the touches that everyone made, there was nobody put a foot wrong on that night. Can we transfer that to this weekend's game? Because let's face it, Hibs away is a big game for us. It's a big game. It's always a hard game, and it is, as Trent Rebel says, back to the grind, back to the mundane of playing against a team that sit back and defend. Will Hibs sit back and defend, or will they kind of have a bit of go at us? Because let's face it, people are watching the Celtic games. You're like, you know what? You can actually score against Celtic, which is it's not all doom and gloom. It's a case of, but then back to Scottish football, you're going to get teams that will sit back for 75 minutes and then try and have a goal for the last 15. When you've seen that Real Madrid done that in times as well, towards the end of the game, they sort of defended in numbers. We can break them down. We can break teams down. So who will play this weekend? Obviously, the big one with Rio Hatate. Rio Hatate being injured. It's a case for Paulo Bernardo. Paulo Bernardo has to come in and stake the claim for that. Paulo Bernardo is a player that came in from Benfica with a high pedigree. We had a glimpse of what he can do the other evening. Celtic fans haven't seen a lot of Paulo the last few months. I've been one that's been crying out to get him on the pitch, get him some game time, but there's some signs that he's worth investing in. When you see the fact that we've got Jota for six odd million and then we managed to sell him on, if Paulo can be even half as good as Jota, we'll make money on him. Trying to get into trying to do what he did against Atletico Madrid was pretty good. I thought he had a decent game. He didn't do too much wrong. He didn't get enough time. I don't think it's not enough game time to really show us what he could do. He did replace Real Hatate after about 10 minutes. He was thrust into the pressure of it. He was pushed into that game. However, he had a level of composure, I think. And, he does lack minutes on the pitch. And I think that's the only thing that kind of went wrong for Paulo. That if he'd been on the pitch and he was up to speed game-wise, game-wise over the last. I mean, it's fine doing it in training, and it's fine showing the manager what you can do in training, but it really comes down to game time. And Paulo Bernardo, he needs game time this weekend, and he needs to show the Celtic manager and the backroom staff what he can really do. So hopefully he starts. We will have a live this evening around about 5:15 Celtic part time, where we go through the team, and you get to pick your team of the day. When we look at the Premier League site, the Championship, the SPFL table, we are on 25 points after 9 games. Goal difference was 17 to the good, but the Sevco are on 18 points. They're 12 to the good goal difference wise. We are away in front of them. St Mirren, they've just lagged off a bit. They're now in 15th. I was kind of hoping that St Mirren could keep up the pressure, but when you look at Hibs, who were playing, Hibs are down 9th position and only on 9 points. So on paper, it's a game that we should win easily because, let's face it, goals against. Hibernian are sitting with 10 goals against. So they haven't had a great start to the season. Hibs, they're down in 9th position. Should be a game. Tell me what you think in the comments. What will be the scoreline? We'll obviously talk about the team tonight. James Dillon says start Bernardo at Hibs and give him game time. Now Hatate's out. The fact that Hatate is going to be out, if it's a hamstring injury, he's going to be out for another 2 or 3 months, which rules him out until after the January break. So we really need to make sure that we get the right player that replaces him. And the one that was brought in to do that was brought in on loan from Benfica, and it's your man Paulo. So let's see what he can do, and hopefully, it's win the game. And I want to win the game convincingly, especially after what we did to the first half to Real Madrid. I want to win this game. I want to see if we go to this. And then there's also the question: should Celtic go to a 3 at the back? We see that we played 3 at the back with Cameron, Carter, Vickers, Nat Phillips, and Liam Scales. Now everyone's been crying out for Liam Scales to go left back. The easiest way to do that is play a 3 at the back. I think we should be playing a 3 at the back and put your 2 wing backs further forward. But then it's who do you then leave out in midfield is the question. Because obviously, if you're going to play Paulo Bernardo, you're going to have to either drop one of the wing backs or change for. You're going to have to change someone else in the midfield. Bernardo started at Hibs, definitely. What did you miss, Angelo? Not a lot. We've just been talking about the fact that it is back to the grind. It was a fantastic result during the week. But we need to forget about that now. But what we need to do is we need to bring that into the team this week. We need to bring it into the game this week. I want to see us playing with that consistency for the first half hour anyway. We do that the first half hour in the SPFL, and we've scored 3 or 4 goals. It's as simple as that. Hail from Sonny Belfast. And Paul McEwen says hail also. We're also talking about the fact that Paulo Bernardo should be getting the start from the start. Hibs will be our 6th away game out of 10 played already. And then it's Ross County away. Yep, James, it's unbelievable the way that the computer's chucked it out. But then when you look at it, there'll be a time where we get a bit we'll get a run at home. Noodles says that Scales is every bit important as Cameron Carter Vickers at the moment. He's now made that position his own for the rest of this year. I said that also. I've been saying for weeks now. I said, don't be surprised when we come to the end of the season that Scales is the most improved player. And if he's not too far off of getting player of the season, purely for the turnaround in his career. I don't think there's maybe Matt O'Reilly is maybe just ahead of him, but he'll not be far off it when it comes to the Player of the Year awards anyway. For most improved player, you're definitely picking Liam Scales all day long. But let's get back to Paulo Bernardo. Obviously, Paulo in possession, it was good. He integrated right into the team. It was great. It was good as well. The fact that he's not had much game time, it was a high stake game. He obviously knows how these players play from Spain. Had been just next door in Portugal, but it showed that he can do it. He is needing to get up game fitness. I think that's the only thing that was kind of holding him back a little bit. Once we get him up to complete game fitness, I think it's definitely an investment worth making, especially since that's twice now this season that Rio Tatis went out with a kind of long-term injury. Is it the fact that, at the beginning of the season, we were all talking about that his mind wasn't in it. And he'd maybe been wavered by the fact that he could get this transfer. it's another injury that's going to keep him out for months. We need to just look at it and say, look, forget about him just now, put him on the back burner, get him up to complete fitness, because hamstring injuries, I don't know, that's twice he's had a hamstring injury this season. Do you think that Dyson needs a rest? Put him on the bench. Looks like he was going to collapse at the end. Dyson always looks like that, Angelo. I think that what we really need to do is keep the consistency of the team. Keep the consistency of the team and then have a really strong bench. When you look at it, I think that the bench was probably the weakest it's been, although there was a lot of experience on the bench. There is a player that was on the bench that we don't even know if he's going to be at Celtic next season. Never mind after the winter break. And that's Turnbull. I mean, Turnbull made the bench, and he looks like nowhere getting near the team, to be honest. It came in at the beginning of the season because Rio Hatate, and let's face it, Turnbull did have a great pre-season. Turnbull had a great pre-season. He was in a better frame of mind, obviously, than what Rio Hatate was. But then a player that's been at Celtic now for three years, will he sign another new contract just to sit on the bench, just because he makes the Scottish quota, just because he makes the Scottish quota for the European Champions League, and then just to sit on the bench in the Champions League? I mean, it's fine getting these nice little trips, but I've always said that an outfield player wants to play. It's not the same as the goalkeepers. We've got two goalkeepers at Celtic who are quite happily sitting on the bench and taking a wage every week. Scott Bain's been at Celtic for a long time. The manager kept Scott Bain for one reason and one reason only. In fact, he was signed before the manager even came in. So Celtic knew last season that we needed this amount of Scottish players. If it's the case that Celtic have to go out and buy another Scottish player that can fit into the team and fit into the first team, there then needs to be a discussion. What Scottish player out there can come in the first team? Because let's not talk about the Scotland goalkeeper Gunn, because I don't think Gunn is the ideal option either. I don't think that he's done it enough at the highest level. It's fine to do it for Scotland when you've got 5 defenders sitting in front of you, the way that Scotland plays sometimes. But we really need to then think about buying in another Scottish player, or doing something really mad, and that's promoting some of the kids from the youth team. Promote some of the younger ones from the youth team into the first team so that they're on the bench. I mean, it's still to this day, I mean, we're spending 20 million to help the development of the youth team and the women's team, but we haven't had that conveyor belt of players coming into the first team for a long, long time. We're buying in players at 21, 22, 20, 20, 21, 22-year-olds, and we're putting our own young players out on loan. Is that affecting the team? Well, you tell me in the comments. Bain's got some medal collection for sitting on the bench. Exactly, James. He's going to sit back and look at at the end of his career. He's going to be on the same medals as what Craig Gordon has. At least he's bound to have. And Craig Gordon was a first team choice for a big part of it, but he sat on the bench also. But he's got, yeah, you're right. He's got some collection of medals. Brendan Rodgers should take a photo of James Forrest coming off the bench. Our option, the board punished further. Yep. Do they have a crisis meeting over Palestine flags? Will they have a crisis meeting over Palestine flags? I don't think so. I don't think there'll be a crisis meeting at all. I just think it'll be business as normal. I think Dyson needs to put himself on the bench. Who's going to lapse? James, yep, Bain. Right, other Celtic news. There's not a lot. It's obviously the big weekend. This weekend is back to work. When you look at it, it is a big game. It's a big, big game. We need to. I mean, all the headlines this morning is all still about the Atletico game and how the talking points of the Atletico game. Fury at the Green Brigade Ultras flying. Terror organisation. It's, I don't know what I mean. Alistair Johnson puts a huge, huge price tag on Matt O'Reilly. That's the big news of this morning, is that Alistair Johnson basically said, look, he reckons that Matt O'Reilly is a £50 million player. Would you put him in that bracket? Maybe as time comes on, you maybe get that 50 million move at some point. We need some older players in January, says Graham Hardy. But we look back to the last transfer window, that's one thing that we all said. We need a couple of players. And it's not the Celtic model. And Brendan Rodgers has basically admitted it. Brendan Rodgers has basically admitted the fact that the way that the board will stick to is buying in project players, making them better and selling them on. That's not really that good for our Champions League aspirations or even getting into Europa, dropping into Europa this season. We're not going to have that option. Derek Smith says Bernardo, he would rather play Iwata. That's an interesting one, Derek. I mean, we've all got our views. That's why it's called the One Celtic One's View. Iwata would be an interesting one, especially at Hibs away. He's got probably a bit more upper body strength for this weekend, which we might need in midfield just to bully that midfield. It's where Bernardo is a bit more of a sort of a European flair player, we could say. He's a player that knows the European scene. So, yeah, I could totally get where you're coming from with that. Iwata does have that bit more upper body physical strength. And I think that would be really interesting. James Dillon says Fabrizio Romano rates him at 30 million just now. I think it would take 30 million to get him away from Celtic, especially after turning down 10 million. And if he's rating him at 50 million, we know that Fabrizio Romano does get paid from clubs to promote players or so it does put crazy price tags. I mean, it's not Celtic that's rating him at that. That's for certainty. Celtic wouldn't come out publicly and rate a player. So Fabrizio Romano's obviously getting that information from somewhere, and he's maybe heard that a club is ready to pay 30 million for Matt O'Reilly. John Doherty says, "Morning, mate. Bernardo will get his game time now. Rest dies. Give Jamesy a run. Can't change too much. Hibs is a hard trip. It is that. It's a good trip though. We get the full stand. We got a decent amount of away fans, which will be good. I would play Iwata, says Graham Hardy. Stuart Ramsey says, morning Barry, morning Baz, porridge and honey and blueberries. And a Celtic fans view for breakfast. That's all you need. And Stuart, I will still pull you up. You did say 2-1 Celtic before the Madrid game. I've still got that written down on my pad. But I've got to give it out to Kaiser because before the game, Kaiser said 3-1. I went for a draw before the game, and I was right. I thought it'd be good. St Mirren never played last week. They could still challenge Sedco for second. So there you go. Never even noticed that. Morning from Gretna. Morning from Gretna. You getting married today? Hey, right. That's it for the Celtic fans view news this morning. Obviously, the news is still all about Celtic and the Champions League game. We will talk more and we'll pick our team tonight for Hibs. For Hibs tomorrow. Hibs tomorrow. It's a massive game if you ask me. It's a case of getting back to business. It is getting back to business, and it's important that we win that game. It's important that we win every game in the league. And I think even the players will. I think the players will want to really up their game after having that intensity. After having that intensity for a good part of the game, and it's hard to keep that level of intensity against a really good team. I mean, people are saying, why did their players tire so much? If you look at the way that Madrid don't play with that intensity. European teams don't play with the intensity that Celtic play with. They like to control the game a lot more. And if that means sitting back and sort of making sure that the players conserve a lot of energy, that's what we need to learn to do at European level. We need to learn how to attack teams really fast and really hard from the off, surprise the teams, and then take a point. But then that's what happened in the second half. We took a point where we didn't start with the same intensity the second half. They got a 20-minute run in the game, and that's going to happen in the SPFL too. But in the SPFL, teams will tire just like Celtic did at the weekend. So hopefully there is no European hangover, and Graham Hardy just put that on the comments just as I said it. Anyway, we'll see you all tonight. Stuart Ramsey, I thought I was right. Yeah, for a while I thought you were going to be right as well, Stuart. I thought it was going to end up 2-1, and we mentioned that during the live. I did shout you out during the live the other night, but it wasn't. It was 2-2. It was 2-2, and it is what it is. So we'll see you tonight around about 5:15 Celtic Park time. So on that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic.